Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the most influential research and ideas and distill them into actionable knowledge just for you.
And today, we are really getting into something foundational.
We really are. We're doing a deep dive into sources shared by a listener, excerpts and key concepts from Brené Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection.
And it's a body of work that's, well, it's powerful.
Yeah.
The author herself is very careful not to call it just another self-help book.
Right. She frames it more as what was the term? A soul traveler's companion.
Exactly. A guidebook for what she terms wholehearted living. And what makes it so compelling, I think, is where it comes from. It's not just philosophy. It's rooted in a decade of really meticulous research.
And research into the tough stuff, right? She wasn't studying happiness initially. She was looking at shame, fear, vulnerability.
All the dark corners.
Yeah. She was trying to figure out what drives us apart. But in doing that, she almost by accident stumbled onto the flip side.
The counter-truths. The counter-truths, that's a perfect way to put it. She found what actually connects us. Love, belonging, joy, authenticity. And that discovery is really the core of everything we're going to talk about today.
It's a fascinating origin story. The author, she calls herself a pattern hunter. She spent years just collecting data, looking for connections in people's lives, very academically, very clinically, you could say.
Very detached. Until this one specific moment, November 2006, she says.
And that's when her own data, in her words, smacked me upside the head.
It's such a great phrase.
It is. She looked at the patterns she was finding in people who felt, whole and connected, and realized her own life was the polar opposite. She was studying a way of living that she absolutely was not practicing.
And that moment triggered what she calls her unraveling.
Not a crisis, though. She's very specific about that distinction.
Yes, a crisis is, sudden, it's external, something happens to you and you have to fix it. An unraveling, that's internal.
It's slower.
More.
Desperate, almost.
It is. It's this process of letting go of who you think you're supposed to be, so you can finally embrace who you actually are.
And the data laid it out for her in just, stark contrast. She made 2 columns.
The do and don't lists.
Exactly. On the do side, you had all the good stuff. Love, belonging, joy, creativity, faith. The things that wholehearted people practice.
And on the other side.
The don't list. Perfectionism, numbing, certainty, exhaustion. All of it.
And her big, painful realization was...
She was living straight down the shit list.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Your own research basically calls you out. She thought being the perfect mom, the perfect academic, was the right way to live.
And the data told her, no, you're actually sabotaging the very things you want most.
Which brings us to, I think, the most crucial lesson in all of this. It's the shift from knowledge to practice. She realized that, understanding yourself is important.
Sure. Necessary.
But it's not enough. What's even more essential is learning to love ourselves through that process of discovery.
Approaching ourselves with kindness instead of judgment.
Exactly. Because knowledge without self-compassion can just become another stick to beat yourself with.
And this has huge implications for, say, parenting.
Oh, massive. She was hit with this really painful truth. We cannot give our children what we don't have.
Oof. That's a heavy one.
It is. If you don't have self-acceptance, if you don't believe you're worthy, you can love your kids fiercely. But that self-contempt will leak out. It creates an environment where they learn that love is conditional, that worthiness has to be earned.
So self-acceptance isn't selfish, it's a prerequisite.
The prerequisite for being able to love others fully. So that's our thesis for this deep dive, really. The definition of wholehearted living.
Which is engaging with the world from a place of worthiness.
Yes. And you do that by cultivating 3 key things: courage, compassion, and connection. So you can get to a place where you genuinely believe that one core mantra.
I am enough.
I am enough. And these 3 things, courage, compassion, connection, they aren't personality traits. They're not trophies you win at the end.
They're the gifts of imperfection.
And they are daily practices, tools, things you have to pick up and use every single day, especially when it's messy and uncomfortable. You practice them, you don't perfect them.
So let's start with that foundation then, worthiness. The research found that this one belief is the single thing that separates people who feel love and belonging from those who don't.
It's the ultimate dividing line. And it's completely internal, which is what makes it so tricky.
It lives inside our story.
Right. It's about accepting the whole story, the good, the bad, the messy parts. The problem is, most of us are constantly trying to be editors of our own lives. We're trying to airbrush out the parts we don't like, the parts we think make us look bad.
And when we do that, we get caught in what she calls hustling for worthiness.
The hustle. It's this belief that worthiness is something out there, something you have to go out and earn.
Through external validation.
Always. And it shows up in 4 really specific behaviors, the 4 Ps, she calls them.
Okay, let's break these down because I think everyone will recognize themselves in at least one of these. The first is performing.
This is the constant pressure to be on, to be the smartest person in the room, or the funniest, or the most put together. It's an act.
And the fear is that if you stop performing, people will see the real you, and they won't like it.
Exactly. The real, boring, flawed you will be rejected, so the performance has to continue at all costs.
Okay, so that's one. The second P is perfecting.
And this isn't the same as healthy striving or trying to do your best. This is different.
How so?
Healthy striving is internally focused. How can I improve? Perfectionism is all about the outside. It's what will they think? It's a shield. The belief is, if I look perfect, live perfect, act perfect, then I can avoid being blamed or judged.
It's a defense strategy.
A 20-ton shield that we think will protect us, but really it just weighs us down.
Okay, third P, pleasing.
The people pleaser. I think a lot of us know this one intimately. It's saying yes when you mean no. It's taking on everyone else's problems. It's avoiding conflict like the plague.
Because your worth is tied to how useful you are to other people.
Precisely. If you stop being useful, you fear you'll become disposable. It's a terrible way to live, constantly abandoning your own needs to meet the perceived needs of others.
And the last one, proving.
This is the hustle of constantly needing to demonstrate your value. Over-explaining yourself, working twice as hard as anyone else just to prove you deserve to be there. Arguing every point to show how smart you are.
It sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of the hustle. It's a hamster wheel. You never, ever get to rest because the performing, perfecting, pleasing, improving never end.
There's always another hurdle to clear.
Always. Which is why the biggest challenge, the whole point of the work, is to internalize that mantra. Worthy now, not if, not when.
Right. Not when I lose 20 pounds, not when I get the promotion, not when my kids are perfect.
Those are the worthiness prerequisites we set for ourselves. Our culture is built on it. It's transactional. You do this, you get that. But worthiness doesn't work that way.
Wholeheartedly says you have to tear up that list. You have to accept your value right here, right now, as you are, mess and all.
Which is a radical act. And it flows directly into the next piece of the puzzle. Love and belonging.
Initially, she didn't even want to study love. She thought it was too
mushy. Yeah, not scholarly enough.
But the data just kept pointing there. It forced her to see that love and belonging are deeply tied to things you can measure, like vulnerability and tenderness.
And this is where she makes another critical distinction. Fitting in versus belonging.
Which most of us confuse. We spend our lives trying to fit in.
Oh, absolutely. We're experts at it. We learn to be chameleons, to change our opinions, our clothes, our interests, to match whatever group we want to be a part of.
That's the hustle again, isn't it? Hustling for approval.
It's the exact same hustle. And it's a betrayal of the self. Because true belonging doesn't ask you to change. It asks you to show up as you are.
Belonging is being seen and accepted for your authentic, imperfect self. Fitting in is being accepted for your carefully curated persona.
Exactly. And the definitions she landed on from the research are so precise. For love, it's about letting ourselves be deeply seen and known in our most vulnerable state.
And having that vulnerability honored.
Honored with trust, respect, kindness. And here's the kicker. The research showed we can only love others as much as we love ourselves.
So if your own tank is empty,
you have nothing genuine to give. Your love for others will always be limited by the ceiling of your love for yourself.
Wow. And for belonging.
It's that innate human desire to be part of something bigger than us. But again, there's a constraint. Your sense of belonging can never be greater than your level of self-acceptance.
So even if a group throws a parade for you, if you don't accept yourself, you'll still feel like an outsider.
You'll be standing there thinking, if they only knew the real me, they wouldn't want me. You'll never truly feel it.
This makes the story from that blog commenter, Justin Valentin, makes so much sense.
Oh, that metaphor is one of the most powerful things in the whole book.
The secondhand smoke metaphor.
He's a mental health professional, and he was talking about mothers struggling with addiction who would say, I love my children more than life itself. And he believed them. He knew the love was real.
But the self-destructive behavior continued.
Right, and his argument was that their self-contempt, their willingness to harm themselves was like secondhand smoke. It was this toxic cloud that inevitably choked and damaged the very children they loved so fiercely.
So loving your kids isn't enough to protect them from the damage of you hating yourself.
That's the chilling takeaway. It completely reframes self-love. It's not a luxury. It's not selfish. It's a moral responsibility to the people in your life.
You have to put on your own oxygen mask first.
It's the ultimate oxygen mask. Prioritizing your own worthiness is an act of protection for everyone you care about.
Okay, so if worthiness is the foundation, let's get into the toolkit. The 3 gifts of imperfection. The first C is courage.
And I love that she goes back to the etymology here. It really changes how you see the word.
The root is cor, Latin for heart.
Exactly. And the original meaning of courage was to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. It was about telling your story with your whole heart.
Which is so different from our modern idea of courage, which is all about, heroic action, running into a burning building.
Right, putting your life on the line. But wholeheartedness requires something quieter. It requires ordinary courage.
Which is about putting your vulnerability on the line.
Every single day. It's risking judgment, risking failure, risking looking stupid, all in the service of being authentic.
The example of the student in the lecture is perfect. The one person who's brave enough to say, I'm sorry, I'm completely lost.
Yes, that is an act of ordinary courage, because they risk looking like the only one who doesn't get it.
Yeah.
But what happens?
The whole room breathes a sigh of relief because half of them were lost too, but were too afraid to say anything.
That person's vulnerability gave everyone else permission to be honest. It's a gift.
Or the story about her daughter, Ellen, at the slumber party. That one really got me.
Oh, it's so moving.
Calling home at 10:30 at night because she's homesick. For a kid, that's a huge admission of, I wasn't brave enough. It's incredibly vulnerable.
It is. But that wasn't even the biggest act of courage in the story.
Right. The real courage came later, when they were planning the next slumber party.
And Ellen asks her mom to schedule an early pickup time in advance, before the party even starts.
She owned her vulnerability. She knew her limits and asked for what she needed to feel safe.
That is proactive, strategic, ordinary courage. It's not about pretending the fear isn't there. It's about planning for it.
She also talks about how she used to do this in her own professional life, this idea of vulnerability minimization.
Right. If a big promotion was on the line, she'd downplay it to everyone. It's no big deal if I don't get it.
Trying to preemptively manage disappointment.
And it's a total myth. It doesn't actually make it hurt less when you fail. And worse, when you succeed, you've already watered down your own joy. You've robbed yourself of the celebration.
So the courageous act is to just own it, to say, this is really exciting and I'm scared and I really hope this works out.
To put your whole heart on the line, that's courage.
Okay, that leads us to the second C, compassion.
And again, the roots of the word tell the story. Pati and come. To suffer with.
To suffer with, not to fix or to judge from a distance.
Exactly. And that's why it's so hard, because our default response to pain, in ourselves or in others, is usually self-protection.
We blame, we judge, we jump into fix-it mode, anything to avoid just sitting in the discomfort of the emotion.
Pema Chodron calls it moving gently toward what scares us, recognizing our shared humanity in that brokenness. You can't be compassionate if you're standing on a pedestal of judgment.
But this is where the research throws a curveball. The connection between compassion and boundaries, that seems counterintuitive.
It totally does.
Right.
We think of compassionate people as having no boundaries, as being these endlessly open-hearted saints.
But the research found the exact opposite.
The most compassionate people she studied were also the ones with the strongest, clearest boundaries.
Why is that?
Because you cannot be genuinely compassionate from a place of resentment. And if you let people walk all over you, if you let them hurt you or take advantage of you, resentment is inevitable.
So you burn out. Your compassion becomes a performance.
It becomes toxic. So setting a boundary, saying no, holding people accountable, isn't the opposite of compassion. It's the prerequisite for it. It's what makes sustainable compassion possible.
Which brings us to accountability. You have to separate the person from the behavior.
Yes, you address what they're doing, not who they are. The story about the corporate manager is a perfect example of how not to do it.
The guy who was shaming his team in meetings for not following rules.
Right. Sarcasm, public humiliation. But when she asked him what the actual consequences were, had he ever written anyone up or involved HR?
He said no. It was too much of a hassle.
And that is the toxic cocktail. He chose shame and blame because it's easier than accountability, but it destroys trust. The employees just learn that he's all bark and no bite, and the behavior never changes.
So real, compassionate accountability is being clear, being firm, and following through. You can be kind while still holding the line.
You have to. If you don't hold the line, you lose your ability to be compassionate because you're just simmering in resentment.
Which brings us to the third and final C, connection.
And her definition here is so rich, it's not just being around people. It's the energy that exists between people.
When they feel seen, heard, and valued.
Yes. And when they can give and receive without judgment, when the relationship itself gives you strength.
The neuroscience backs this up, right? We're literally wired for connection.
We are. It's a biological imperative. Our nervous systems regulate in relationship with others. Isolation is literally bad for our health.
And yet, we have so many barriers to it in modern life. Technology being a big one.
A huge one. It's an imposter. It gives us the illusion of connection without the substance.
Like the family sitting at the dinner table, all texting other people.
Exactly. We're hyper-communicating, but we're not connecting. Real connection requires vulnerability, nuance, eye contact. All the things that get lost in a text message.
The other big barrier she points to is this cultural myth of self-sufficiency.
The I can do it all myself trap. We get so much of our self-worth from being the helper, the strong one, the person everyone else relies on.
And we are terrible at asking for help ourselves.
Terrible. Because we see it as a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
But she quotes this line that is just devastating. Until we can receive with an open heart, we are never really giving with an open heart.
Wow.
Because if you judge yourself for needing help, you are subconsciously judging others when you help them. Your giving is tangled up with your ego.
She had to learn that firsthand when she hit rock bottom and had to ask her younger siblings for help. It shattered her whole identity as the perfect, capable older sister.
But it's what allowed real reciprocal connection to finally happen. And this all ties together perfectly in the gun for hire shame storm story.
Oh, that's a great case study for all three tools in action.
It is. She's invited to speak to parents, but the principal introduces her in this bizarre, aggressive way.
Setting her up as a helicopter parent mercenary.
Right. A topic she wasn't even there to talk about. The speech bombs? One guy is practically heckling her with his body language, and it triggers a massive shame storm.
Her old way would have been to just retreat into silence and self-blame.
But this time, she practices courage. She immediately picks up the phone and calls her sister Ashley, which is courageous because she has to admit she failed. She has to be vulnerable.
And her sister's response is a masterclass in compassion.
Perfect compassion. She doesn't say, oh, it wasn't that bad. She doesn't try to fix it. She just says, oh, man, that's so hard. I've done that dance. I hate that feeling.
I've done that dance. That's the key phrase, shared humanity.
Instantly. No judgment, just empathy. And the result of that courage and compassion is true connection. She says she felt totally exposed and completely loved and accepted at the same time.
And that's it. That's the whole model. The gifts are the antidote to shame, which only has power when we keep it secret.
So we have to talk directly about shame. It's the enemy. She learned that the hard way, that her audience didn't just want tips for a happier life. They needed help with the things that get in the way.
The light and breezy story. The event planner at the country club who begged her not to talk about shame or fear.
Just keep it light and breezy.
And the talk was a total flop because you can't get to the light by ignoring the dark. You have to wade through what she calls the swampland of the soul.
And to do that, you need a very clear definition of what shame is. It's not just embarrassment.
It's the intensely painful feeling that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging.
It's the fear of being unlovable, the core belief that something is wrong with me.
Which is why the distinction between shame and guilt is probably the most important distinction in the entire book.
It is life-changing to understand this. Guilt is about behavior. Guilt says, I did something bad.
So it's fixable. You can apologize, you can make amends, you can change the behavior.
Right. Guilt is actually a motivator for positive change. It keeps us aligned with our values. It's uncomfortable, but it's productive.
Shame is completely different. Shame isn't about what you did, it's about who you are. Shame says, I am bad.
And that is so corrosive. Because if you believe you are the mistake, there's no hope for change. Why even try?
So it leads to destructive behaviors.
The research links it directly to violence, aggression, depression, addiction. It's people trying to escape the unbearable feeling of being fundamentally flawed.
So we can't get rid of shame. The goal is to build shame resilience.
Exactly. The ability to recognize it, move through it, and come out the other side with your sense of worthiness intact. And you do that by breaking its life support system: secrecy, silence, and judgment.
There are 4 steps to this. First, you have to know your triggers.
You have to understand what topics, what situations, what kinds of comments send you into that shame spiral. For one person, it might be money. For another, it's body image. For another, it's parenting.
Second, practice critical awareness. You have to reality check those never good enough messages.
Both the ones in your own head and the ones coming from the culture around you. You have to question the narrative.
Third, you have to reach out. Share your story with someone who's earned the right to hear it.
This is the big one. Shame cannot survive being spoken. It thrives in isolation and dies in connection.
And fourth, you have to speak shame. Name it. Say the word. I'm feeling a lot of shame right now.
And then ask for what you need.
Ah.
I just need you to listen, or can you just tell me I'm not a terrible person?
The EGAD story is the perfect walkthrough of this whole process.
It's so good. She posts this fun, spontaneous photo of herself and gets this snarky email from a woman criticizing it, ending with EGADS.
And her first reaction is pure ego defense. She drafts 3 different nasty replies.
Oh yeah, getting ready to go to war. The third one points out all the women's spelling mistakes. It's vicious.
Then she stops, and she realizes that the courageous thing to do is not to hit back, but to just feel the hurt and not pass it on. She deletes the drafts.
That's the first level of resilience. But the deeper level comes later, when a student challenges her on what the shame was really about.
She thought it was about being bad at photography.
But the student asks, or was it because you let yourself be open and fun and spontaneous, which is a risk for you, and then you got slapped down for it?
And that was it. The real shame wasn't about the photo. It was about being vulnerable and getting punished for it.
And that breakthrough, that's what shame resilience is. It's not about having thicker skin. It's about understanding the real story underneath the shame.
This all flows right into perfectionism, which she calls the birthplace of shame.
Again, it's not about healthy striving. Healthy striving is self-focused. How can I improve? Perfectionism is other-focused. What will they think?
It's a shield. The belief that if I'm perfect, I can't be hurt.
But it's a shield that's impossible to hold up, so it's self-destructive. And it's addictive because every time you fail, you just think, I need to try harder to be perfect next time.
And it leads to what she calls life paralysis.
All the things we don't do, the book we don't write, the class we don't take, the person we don't ask out because we're too afraid of not doing it perfectly.
The antidote is self-compassion, Dr. Kristen Neff's work.
The ultimate antidote, and it has 3 parts. First, self-kindness, treating yourself like you would treat a good friend when you fail.
Instead of that inner critic that just tears you apart.
Right. Second is common humanity, realizing that suffering and failure are part of the shared human experience. It's not just you.
That pulls you out of the isolation that shame creates.
And third is mindfulness, which is about being with your painful feelings without letting them consume you. You don't ignore the pain, but you don't over-identify with it either.
The misspelling example she gives is so clear. The perfectionist mind screams, you misspelled that name. You're a fraud. You're a hack.
While self-compassion says, oops, that's a mistake. Mistakes happen, I'll correct it. It takes the catastrophe out of the equation and just leaves a simple human error. That's the practice. Okay, so let's move into what sustains us. Resilience. Guidepost #3 is about cultivating a resilient spirit, which means letting go of numbing.
And the foundation for resilience, according to her research, was spirituality.
But not in a narrow religious sense. The definition that emerged from the data was about connection.
Recognizing that we're all connected to each other and to something larger than ourselves, and that this connection is grounded in love and compassion.
It's what gives us perspective and purpose. When something terrible happens, spirituality is what keeps it from feeling like the whole world has collapsed. It provides a larger context.
And out of that spiritual grounding, she found a few other key elements of resilience. The first one is hope. And again, a big clarification here. Hope is not an emotion.
This is a huge takeaway. It's a cognitive process. It's a way of thinking, and it has 3 ingredients.
First, you need realistic goals. You have to know where you want to go.
Second, you need to be able to see multiple pathways to get to those goals. This is about flexibility. If plan A doesn't work, you don't give up. You pivot to plan B.
It requires perseverance.
And third, you need agency. The belief in yourself. The little voice that says, I can do this.
And she says hope is learned. It's often learned when parents let their kids fail and figure out how to get back up on their own.
Which is so counter to our current culture of wanting everything to be fun, fast, and easy. When things get hard, we haven't built the muscle for finding new pathways. We give up.
We're not practicing hope.
We're not. Another critical skill for resilience is critical awareness. This is our shield against all the cultural messaging that feeds our not-enoughness.
We have to constantly ask ourselves, what are these messages trying to sell me? And who benefits from me feeling bad about myself?
And the answer is almost always about money or power. When you start to see that, you can shift from the shame-based zoom lens, what's wrong with me,
To the wide lens of, oh, this is a systemic pressure. This isn't just my problem.
and that is so empowering. It's the difference between shame and connection. You realize, I'm not broken. I'm just human in a culture that profits from my insecurity.
And we need that resilience because our go-to coping mechanism for pain is so often just numbing.
The author is very open about this, calling herself a former take-the-edge-off-aholic.
And the numbing tools are everywhere. It's not just booze or drugs.
No, it's food, it's work, it's being busy all the time, it's endlessly scrolling on your phone, anything to avoid feeling the discomfort.
The key question to ask is, does this behavior get in way of me being my authentic self? Does it stop me from having hard conversations or feeling my real feelings?
If the answer is yes, then it's probably a numbing strategy. And here's the devastating truth the research found.
You can't selectively numb emotion.
You can't. When you numb the dark stuff, the fear, the anxiety, the shame, you, by default, also numb the light. You numb joy, you numb connection, you numb love.
Because joy is vulnerable. To feel real joy, you have to be open to the possibility of real pain.
So when we lose our tolerance for discomfort, we also lose our capacity for joy. We end up living in this narrow, beige, emotional middle ground.
And then when a real crisis hits, we have no reservoir of joy to sustain us, so we just double down on the numbing. It's a vicious cycle.
Which leads us right to the last guidepost, cultivating gratitude and joy, and letting go of scarcity and the fear of the dark.
The connection here was absolute. Right. Every joyful person she interviewed actively practiced gratitude.
100% correlation. They didn't just have a grateful attitude, they had a gratitude practice.
And it's important to separate joy from happiness. Happiness is circumstantial. It comes and goes.
Joy is different. It's a spiritual way of engaging with the world. The Greeks had a word for it, chairo, and its opposite wasn't sadness. Its opposite was fear.
So to cultivate joy, you have to practice gratitude. It's like yoga. You can't just have a yoga attitude. You have to actually get on the mat.
You have to keep a journal or say what you're grateful for out loud. You have to take action.
And the barriers to this are huge. The first one is scarcity.
The mindset of never enough. We wake up thinking, I didn't get enough sleep. We go through the day thinking, I don't have enough time. It's a constant litany of lack.
And you can't be grateful for what you have if your mind is always focused on what you don't have.
Impossible. The other barrier is the fear of the dark.
This is a tricky one. It's that feeling you get when things are going almost too well.
Yes. The author calls it foreboding joy. She'd be watching her kids play, feeling this wave of pure love and joy, and her very next thought would be a terrible, tragic accident.
It's like we're waiting for the other shoe to drop. We think that if we let ourselves feel too much joy, we're just setting ourselves up for a bigger fall.
It's magical thinking. We believe that by rehearsing tragedy, we can somehow control it. But we can't.
And the paradox is that the dark doesn't extinguish the light. It defines it. It's our fear of the dark that makes us hide our own joy away.
We have to accept that pain and loss are part of life, and gratitude and joy are the only things that will give us the strength to get through those hard times when they come.
Joy isn't a giant floodlight.
No. She said it's like twinkle lights. These small, ordinary moments of beauty and connection, gracefully strung together by trust, gratitude, inspiration, and faith. Our job is just to notice them.
So after this incredibly extensive deep dive, it's clear that wholehearted living isn't a destination. It's not a box you check.
No, it's a practice. It's a direction, like walking toward a star. You never quite get there, but you always know you're heading the right way.
And it's a practice of two things at once: cultivating and letting go.
You're actively cultivating authenticity, self-compassion, resilience, joy, and at the same time, you're actively letting go of what other people think, of perfectionism, of numbing, of scarcity.
And those three core tools, courage, compassion, connection, they're muscles. You have to exercise them every day.
I love that quote she uses from the theologian Mary Daly. You learn courage by couraging. You don't read a book and suddenly become brave. You become brave by doing brave things over and over again.
This framework, I think, gives you the language to understand the struggles you're already facing. The shame, the hustle, the fear. It gives you a map.
A very practical map for choosing a life that feels more authentic and more connected.
So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought. It comes from Margaret Young, and it really flips the typical script on its head.
It does, she says. Often people attempt to live their lives backwards. They try to have more things in order to do more, so that they will be happier. The way it actually works is the reverse. You must first be who you really are, then do what you really need to do in order to have what you want.
You have to be first.
You have to start with the being, which, if we brought it all back home, means starting with self-love and self-acceptance. In a culture that is constantly telling you you're not enough, that you need to hustle and prove your worth.
The act of simply standing your ground, owning your story, and deciding that you are worthy right now, just as you are.
That's not selfish. That is the most courageous and revolutionary act you can possibly undertake.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the practice of wholehearted living. We hope this analysis serves you well on your own journey.
Until next time.